about what you've heard. Or I can come to you with the mic. So we'll just go in order. We'll take a question from in person, and then we'll see if anybody online has any questions that have joined us in the virtual attendee room. Can go to her. Yeah. That's why we have to.
I live out on the right up in the north end here, power line at Park Road. I back onto Park Road, and I heard today that a Catholic school is going in probably 2024. So this does affect me and how I drive around there, and my concern is the traffic along there. There's no sidewalks. Anything on either side of Powerline Road. At night, I can hear it becomes a drag strip out on a Powerline Road. I can hear them winding up at at King George, all the way down to Park, then they spin around on Gretzky or Park Road, and zoom down there. There's no anything. I don't ever hear any of them being pulled over, anything. My concern is all these kids, and there's going to be. From what I'm reading, there's going to be what do you call daycare along there. There's no sidewalks. Like there's a wonderful sidewalk and trail over on Gretzky, but that's it. There's nothing. And down at the far end at King George Road, there's a lovely park up to the seniors' residence. But there's nothing on either side for anybody. And if you want us to be using our bikes and walking, and I know there's a lot of people walking around up our area, it comes to, we're sort of dead-ended on that end. And that really concerns me because we're going to have a lot of traffic. Is there any plans to have sidewalks on either side? Now that that the other side of Powerline Road is part of Brantford now.
Thanks for your question.
Excellent question. It's funny how the city has transportation staff in a development group and an operations group. So any new development is handled by the transportation technologists that are in development. So that's a question that's better for development engineering. So I can certainly forward your questions to them. And I can leave you with my card at the end of the night, and I can follow up with you if you want to email me. And I would imagine it would likely be mostly busing to that school because there isn't any sidewalk up in that area, and there probably won't be until the area gets more developed. But usually developers are required to provide sidewalk in front of their developments anyway, but that's not going to do you much good until the rest of the area gets built up with new subdivisions, and then those developers would be also required to build sidewalk in front of those developments. So let me contact development, and I can follow up with you.
Thanks, Rob. We do have a question from one of the attendees who's joining us virtually. Elizabeth, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. I would like to say a big thank you to Councillor McCreary for organizing this. It's definitely needed on Ashgrove. In July of this year, my daughter was riding her bike to her grandmother's and was struck by a car. And she had serious injuries. We have a mess of vehicles on Ashgrove, and there's way too much speeding. Everything that we do here, the number one consideration has to be kids, whether it's children, whether it's youth, it has to be them. Nothing else matters. These are residential areas. This is where people are raising their families. There are a lot of homes on Ashgrove. I live very close to that area. We use that street frequently. Please, I strongly encourage you that when you issue your report, I want you to have in front of you the image of a child, because that's who's riding their bikes, shooting the hoops, and they are on the sidewalks, but drivers are drivers. They're going too fast. So I don't want to see what happened to my daughter and the ways in which our lives were tragically changed as a result of that event. Please be motivated by that. And again, I thank you for this meeting, but please consider that as you make your reports.
Thanks for that feedback, Elizabeth. Did you want to direct a question or comment to anybody specific on the panel? Or you want us to collect the input, and we do have a recording of what you've said, and I'm sure that Rob's going to take that back.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me, I've been paying attention to what's going on in Toronto and the campaign that they are doing in Toronto. And I think it is time to put video cameras up on Ashgrove. It's time. Ticket these people. If you speed, I don't care who you are, you go over 40, that area is 40, even drop it down to 30. Who cares? It's going to take you 30 seconds longer. Put the video cameras, install them, ticket people all the time, and not just randomly over a period of time, consistently, so that people get the message that we have to slow down for these kids.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I don't think you can see the whole room, but there's a lot of people nodding their heads. So thank you very much for your feedback. Yep. I see someone else in the room. Oh, okay. Yep. Chief Davis, go ahead.
Yeah, just for Elizabeth, thank you for that comment. I've been speaking with Dave Ferguson. I've said this in the Echo Place and Eagle Place meetings. I am a huge supporter of, we call it automated speed enforcement, where you put the cameras up. I tell everyone, so I was a chief of police in Alberta for 5 years, where photo radar is very common and it works. That machine has no soul. To your point, Elizabeth, it does not care who you are. It does not care who you know. You set the speed threshold and it snap, 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 and you get the ticket in the mail, and it eventually catches up to you. So I'm a huge supporter of automated speed enforcement, and Dave Ferguson has been working on that. So thank you for those comments, and I support what you're saying. The automated speed enforcement is the way we need to go in this province and in this city. So thank you for those comments.
And just to add to that, one of the issues with the speed enforcement cameras is you can't use them just anywhere. They can only be used in community safety zones. And I believe school zones are automatically considered community safety zones. So this is one area where we can utilize them, is on Ashgrove, because of this school being on the street. So this is an area that will get targeted once we are able, once we're able to utilize those cameras.
If I could just add to that, earlier in the year, we did a Let's Talk Brantford campaign, asking residents where they had speeding concerns for future consideration of community safety zones and the installation of automated speed enforcement. And Ashgrove Avenue was I think the top response we got for requests for the consideration of a community safety zone. So it is definitely on our list for consideration, and staff will be reporting to council next year regarding automated speed enforcement.
Okay, we have a gentleman that's been waiting to use the microphone.
I can wait a minute.
Okay. In front, yes. That way the people that are watching virtually can hear you as well, and it makes it a lot easier so we don't have to repeat your question.
I echo the sentiment about the speed cameras. That's way overdue. I live on Greenfield. I'd like to see one there. It's needed. Ashgrove, I walk almost every day. And some of the the speeding I've seen there, I'd be here half an hour if I went into all that. But I'd like to see them on Dunstan as well, between Park Road North and Memorial. There were a couple of guys 2 days ago booting her up there, they're clearly racing, but doing at least 90 Ks an hour. And I see that sort of thing all the time. I really think that's got to be addressed. I read it in the expositor, so it must be true that the city's experimenting with them in a couple of locations, but I think it's got to be done. There's just too much speeding in this area. And not only the incident that the other woman was talking about, but there was one on Ashgrove a few months ago where two school kids were injured, not seriously, but the ambulance was there and police cars were there. As a result, there's a stop sign there that should have been there years ago. It's just the other side of Cedarland. That's the way where the kids cross the road. And it's going to happen sooner or later. In Ashgrove, a kid is going to be seriously hurt, and the city's got to do something about it. Okay. My question is when, I suppose. And if it comes down to a matter of money, what takes priority over that?
Unfortunately, it's not a matter of money. It's a matter of dealing with the province. I'm on the Vision Zero Road Safety Committee, and the province started rolling this out, and it was very limited as to what municipalities could participate. And their center for processing the tickets became overwhelmed, and they cut the program off for any new municipalities for a number of years. And they're just getting to the point now where they're looking at other options in order to open it up again. And because our Vision Zero committee has been very adamant that this is something we need to do, I think we're going to be number one on the list to get into this program once it does open up for further municipalities. We've been waiting years for this program to reopen. Unfortunately, it's taken a long time because there is a large interest in it. And so we're looking at a system where we process the tickets ourselves in combination with some other communities that are looking for it in the hopes of getting it sooner. But unfortunately, it's taken a very long time because the way the province rolled it out and then cut things off. So it's something that we're working on. And we're as frustrated as you are that we can't implement this sooner because we know how much it's needed. Speeding is one of the things we hear about most from our constituents. And you can see by the turnout here tonight that is a very, very serious concern for the area.
Okay.
So thank you very much for your comments.
Supplementary question. Is there a reason that didn't come up in the last provincial election, that issue?
No one made it an issue, unfortunately.
I didn't know it was a provincial decision.
Yeah.
But anyway, from my point of view, I would urge you to do anything that's necessary to get that online, because it's just a matter of time before there's this really serious accident around here. And I'm afraid very much that it will involve children, particularly on Ashgrove.
Yeah, and actually money is not the issue because the program covers its own costs with the revenue from the fines. So as soon as we can get it up and running, I know a lot of people in town want it, and the sooner we can get it going, the better. And our Vision Zero committee is pushing hard for that.
If you got cameras on the 3 locations I suggested, it will pay the city budget. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Maybe not that much, but it'll cover the cost of the program. I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago, the program started in Toronto. And it was shortly after that they cut it off for any additional municipalities because their processing center was overwhelmed with the number of photos that were coming in to be analyzed and tickets processed. And because of that, we're looking at setting up our own system for processing those in combination with other municipalities who desperately want this program as well, because there is a huge need for it. And because of that, we're looking at alternatives to get this thing up and running sooner.
All right, thank you. Hi, my name's Dave McDonald. I back onto Power Line Road. Earlier discussion about the racing goes on Power Line Road anywhere between 10 to 1 o'clock in the morning and beyond on a hot summer day. They are far in excess of 40 or 50 kilometers over the limit. They're way over. Phone before, we'll send a cruiser out. Never see the cruiser, never see anybody pulled over. Next night goes on and on. Okay, so if you're gonna do something with Power Line, appreciate it. My understanding is in development, it's gonna go 4 lanes. Okay, I'm looking at some kind of a berm or something to protect us that are there, okay, from the noise, because I don't believe you're gonna get rid of it. I think with all the development you've got going north of this town, you're gonna need more roads, but that's besides the point. Second point is this. Why do you think a strip of paint is gonna protect a kid on a roadway? Honestly. I see a painted line and somebody's riding a bike inside it and I'm watching 2.5 tons of metal, even at 40 kilometers an hour, and I'm looking at some character on a cell phone. I worked 15 years for the Ministry of Labor. I saw a lot of this stuff. And I'm watching this guy drive by on a cell phone and there's a rider right beside him. How do you really think a strip of paint is what, 2 mil thick at best, is gonna stop that car from hitting him? Have you guys looked or even thought about putting some kind of those little barriers they put up there? I know they bust, I know they get rid of them, but you know, cars don't like hitting them. People don't like putting their fancy cars in there. Have you ever thought of something like that? Last point, I work for the Ministry of Labor. I hand out a lot of tickets in this town. Some of you may have got them, I'm sorry if you did, but that's the way it is. Provincial offenses are one of the lowest recoverable fines out there. If you're looking for additional funding, you should be pursuing your provincial fines. Okay? It's just a rant, guys. I'm sorry. It just is. All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And your comments about the bike lanes are appropriate. That's one of the reasons why Councillor McCurry and I have insisted that the multi-use trail on the power line that is separated from the road be finished before they look at additional bike lanes, for example, on Dunstan. So we're pushing for that project to be completed first, because that gives separation from the road and gives cyclists and pedestrians a much, much higher degree of safety. Bike lanes on Dunstan is something that the Active Transportation Committee wanted to do. And Councillor McCurry and I said no. Because Memorial was such a disaster the way it was rolled out. We wanted the city to have a little more time to do them in other places and get better at it before they inflict that on the same area that the disaster on Memorial happened. We've made 2 changes. Yeah. It's quite possible at some point. But yep. Oh.
Yeah, and I think it's. Is it on?
Yeah.
I think it's important if you're going to implement bike lanes in certain areas, especially Dunstan. I find that that is a direct route. I mean, my husband and I ride that often just to make our way down to trails. And that's just something that is important to us. And also to tap into what's already been said about the speed. We back onto Dunstan and we're in that section which is supposed to be 50 kilometers an hour, which is now normal is usually 70 through that stretch. And I'm talking between Memorial and Park Road North. Why was the decision made to make from Memorial up to King George Road 40? I understand probably because of the park. Is that correct?
I believe it was a request of residents and because the park is right there.
And that became 40, but we stayed 50 despite having Cedarland School and Resurrection School within that area.
We can look at making the rest of Dunstan 40 for continuity reasons. We did that when there was need to change the speed limit on power line. It was several different speeds.
Right.
And there was a recommendation to change one section to a certain speed. And that council, we amended it to say, make the whole thing the same.
That's right.
And I think I hope that's helped on power line. I don't know if it has or not. And just while we're on the subject of power line, the gentleman who's at the mic, he was indicating that the times when there's racing going on there. And Councilor McCreary and I are both on the police services board. And one of the things we heard from the Eagle Place meeting and the East Ward meeting was that if the police can get the information as to when there is a higher incidence of that kind of activity, they know the appropriate time to do enforcement and try and stop that. So I'm hoping that the police will get the message that Powerline Road from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock and later is prime time for racing. And hopefully they'll step up enforcement there.
And Dunstan's just as bad.
Well,
And
is
it's
it,
getting worse. It really, I mean, we've lived there for 20 some odd years and it's getting worse.
okay, is there a specific time of day when it's the biggest problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the evening, you know, you just, and
In the evenings?
motorcycles just whip up there. Like I said, should be 50, the normal is 70 along there. And I'm not exaggerating, or more.
Well, the police are still on the meeting, I'm assuming. Yeah, so they're hearing these comments, they're making notes, and hopefully they're going to do some targeted enforcement.
Exactly. And I mean, like I said, you know, between Memorial and King George Road, that's 40, but majority of people do not, you know, respect that. Majority of them are going 50, 60, 70 kilometers up there. And there's no reinforcement. There's no accountability. They just go up there. The odd time you might see a cruiser, you know, parked in, but for the most part, it's a 4-lane and people just go up there at their will. So if you're going to make, you know, 40-kilometer an hour, you know, roadways, then it's got to be reinforced somehow, whatever you need to do, but it's got to be reinforced. People got to be held accountable.
And that's why we're really pushing for the speed enforcement cameras, because that's what'll make a difference, because the police department are spread pretty thin and it's a problem citywide.
And I appreciate that. Absolutely.
Yeah, but the cameras, they'll sit there 24/7. They don't need a coffee break. They'll just keep snapping pictures of everybody that exceeds the threshold. And sooner or later, some of them after maybe 5 or 6 tickets, because some of them will be slow learners.
Perhaps.
But once they get enough tickets, it'll sink in and they'll slow down.
Perhaps. And like I said, there are 2 schools in that district. And I think that's got to be a priority too.
And because there's schools there, they're designated community safety zones, which will allow us to utilize the cameras in that area. Because unfortunately, we can't use the cameras everywhere, but because of the schools, we can use them there. So that's something we can look forward to.
Regarding the second things, I know there's some people that don't agree with that. But for somebody who cycles, you know, to us it's important. If you're going to implement them on certain streets, why not? You know, why segregate certain streets, especially ones that where the traffic is quite rapid.
Yeah, and can I ask you, would you prefer to utilize the trail along Powerline if it went from King George through to Gretzky Parkway? Would you utilize that before using bike lanes on Dunstan?
No, and our reason in particular is we're usually going to the trails at the west end off Hardy Road. So to go up to Powerline, I come to a dead end. I can't do that. So that's our particular reason, but also knowing that others, seniors, other people use Dunstan to get to that area or whatever else they're doing. That's the reason why that be important to us on the power line.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
I have the microphone. I don't mind.
My name is Don Brown. I live at 3 Skylark Road. It's not a busy street, but on Ivanhoe, we have the same problem with speeding going up and down the street. But also the parking, the people park right up, their back bumpers are past the sidewalk. If you're going down the sidewalk in Skylark, you've got to sometimes go around their bumper to get across the road. And then if the cars aren't there, then the people out going down the Skylark don't stop at the corner. They just boogie around. But with parking on both sides of Ivanhoe, sometimes cars in any direction have to stop and wait for another car to go around the corner. And there's also just recently a basketball net put on that corner where the kids are playing. And most of the people are very responsible to live on the street. They know it. And it's not a big deal. But again, I'll just add one other thing. Talking about speeding, that portion of Ivanhoe is also a racing, and a mini school bus in the morning races down that way at probably about 50, 55 kilometers an hour. When he picks up wherever he does down there, when he comes back, he's probably doing even faster. And that's a mini school bus. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. It's illegal to park too close to the corner. So if they're parked there, you can call parking enforcement.
I think what happened a couple of years ago, they put a no parking sign on the other side of Skylark. But that's the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, where all the parking is, they should have put one on that side, the same distance away from the corner.
One of the things we might have to look at is putting signs that say no parking here to corner at a distance back. Like we're making notes on all this, so hopefully that'll be part of the follow-up meeting that we have after this to say that's one of the things that we're considering.
I have mentioned this to Dan McCreary a while back too, that it's a concern because I sit right in my living room window having a coffee or whatever. I see them in the morning when the school buses are being picked up, or at lunchtime when people are walking or whatever, all different times of day, and it's the same problem. So I think they get it back on the other side.
Okay, so staff have indicated they're going to look at that for people watching online that didn't hear the comments there. While the mic's being moved, I just want to comment. I got some messages from some people that were unable to attend this meeting. One of them lives on Greenfield, right near one of the bends there. And apparently some people have been leaving the road at that bend and hitting trees and hitting buildings. So one of the things they want to have us look at is speed bumps on Greenfield because people don't slow down for those bends. And that's a problem we had on Memorial at Buckingham. It was a 40 speed limit, and people obviously weren't doing 40. And after we had approved the always stop at Buckingham, and before the signs went up, there was another person left the road, and some of the residents who I'd been working with to get the stop sign in called me to let me know about what had happened. I was at work that night, but my wife went down with a camera to take some pictures, and she overheard the driver saying to the officer, "But I was only doing 60." Okay, I think we had a question over this
We
way.
actually have someone online who's been
Oh,
waiting. Yeah.
online next.
Yeah. So we're going to go to Christine, who's joining us online, and then we'll go back to in person. Christine, you can go ahead.
Make sure you unmute yourself. And if you're willing to, turn your camera on.
No, she's there. I can see her. Yep, there we go. We can hear you now.
Hello?
Hi there. Go ahead.
Okay. I didn't have a question, but I will make a comment. I live off of Woodway Trail, just off of Dunstan. My street is off of Woodway Trail, and any of the traffic coming off of Dunstan, the speeding traffic that comes down Woodway Trail, drives fairly fast down Woodway Trail and around the corner, and then back up. I believe it goes up to Cedarland, Woodway Trail. So that's my comment, that the fact that people have commented that people are traveling quite fast on Dunstan, and I find that any traffic traveling fast on Dunstan that leaves Dunstan onto a side street are still traveling fast down those side streets. The area I live in is not a heavy traffic area, but for those that do drive fast, they're driving very fast past the house. And there's children around here. So yeah, I believe it's 40 here. There's a sign posted, but people just continue to drive fast. And my concern is for the children. So that's my comment.
Thank you for your comments. They've been noted. Just one question. Is there a particular time of day when it's worse?
It's the morning, and then in the afternoon, I guess, when people are coming back from work, and then in the evening during the weekends.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming to this meeting. I'm with the Cedarland Neighborhood Association as well, so really pleased to see that you're taking the time to hear from residents here. So that's really great. One of the things I just wanted to reiterate is definitely Ashgrove. There's quite a bit of traffic that comes down, and there's there's not a lot of things that break between Memorial and Cedarland School that would cause people to stop. So certainly excess speed there. And further down Ashgrove, certainly the parked cars is certainly something to be mindful of. And so there's a lot of children in that neighborhood and a lot of people darting across with the park right there. So certainly something to look at. I don't have a solution right now, but just wanted to reiterate that. I think as an interim, I know we've been talking a lot about these cameras that may come, that they're a provincial thing. I think we need to really look at interim measures right now rather than hang our hats on a provincial program that may or may not happen. Also, certainly there's a lot of other areas of the city that I would think may get something like that first beyond our area. I know we all think that there's quite a bit here, but it's also across the city as we hear about in the news. So I think just in terms of some interim measures that we can definitely do would be increased visibility at the crosswalks that are currently there. There's certainly some areas that access the park that don't have any crossing of any kind. Certainly closer to the Dunstan Plaza there as people enter the Cedarland Park. Anything that can increase visibility would really help at those spots and really direct people to cross at designated areas. Yeah, certainly looking forward to seeing what can be done on Ashgrove. I think there's certainly something to be done, and also visibility off of Memorial onto Ashgrove as well. People tend to make a right turn at high speed down there and use it as a freeway. So just wanted to just point out those measures. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we want to hear your problems. You don't necessarily have to have a solution for the problem. That's up to our staff to look at things and come up with possible solutions. And your comment about interim solutions, that's the whole point of this meeting, is to look at what can be done. Because even if the speed cameras do come, there are other things that need to be done to help make the neighborhood safer. The cameras are just one aspect, and that's something that we're definitely working on and hope to have that soon. But in the meantime, there's other things that need to be done. And we want to hear from you where the specific problems are. And we'll look at ways to address the specific issues that are raised.
What is the fine? And if there's a variance?
For speeding? Rob, do you know what the fines are for the speed cameras?
I believe they're,
Not off the top of my head, sorry, which Rob are you talking to?
I think he would have said Chief Rob, but you're there, so you go ahead.
Well, I'll let the other Rob go because that's the speed cameras are more his, the other Rob's bailiwick. So go ahead, Rob.
Okay.
there's no demerit points associated with the ASE cameras because they don't know who's driving the vehicle. The ticket goes to the owner of the vehicle. So if your teenager's driving the vehicle, mom gets the ticket because the vehicle's registered to mom, right? And I would imagine, maybe the chief can confirm, but I would imagine the speeding fine is comparable to as if a police officer issued the ticket.
Yeah, exactly. It's based on your rate of speed, and that obviously the higher the speed, then the higher the fine.
And because they're issued to the owner of the vehicle, if it's a teenager borrowing mom or dad's car, they can't just pay the ticket and not tell mom and dad. The ticket's going to be going to mom and dad. And if it was my son who was caught doing that, he'd certainly hear about it from me and probably not have the use of the car for a while. But my kids are older now, they can pay their own fines.
I'm just looking around to see if there's a familiar face here this evening. I was out last night speaking to people. I don't live in the area, but I was on Forsyth, right down where the speed bumps are. And his big concern was that people will slow down to go over the speed bump and then gun it, like just gun it. And there's a school right there. He was very adamant that it's not working so well because of people's, you know, what they're doing. So again, I just wanted that comment on record for that individual. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's one of the problems with speed bumps is people see that as a challenge. They think, well, you forced me to slow down with this bump. I'm going to see how fast I can get going before I have to start slowing down for the next one. Yeah, or they use the parallel streets. The other issue is some people, when they slow down for a speed bump like that, they'll squeal their tires as they speed up. Just to aggravate the people who requested it in the first place. The other issue is some trucks, when they go over them, they make quite a loud bang, and that's a problem for the residents who live right where the speed bumps are. So, yeah.
The other thing is on streets, like when they put the new lights up on Greenfield Road, they put them in among the trees, and they're just the size as the lights compared to the old system that was here. And then also they put it at too far away from the corners on some of the streets. And I was just wondering if they, I know with the LED lights, but they're not bright enough when you're in among trees.
Thank you. That is a problem that we have. The trees are looked at when the lights are installed, but the trees continue to grow. And so we have to return and deal with that issue on a regular basis. And it sounds like Greenfield hasn't been done in a while. So staff are making note of that, and they'll make sure that the tree department has that information, and hopefully we'll get out and trim those trees fairly soon.
Sure.
I thought you would ask your question when you had the microphone in hand.
I was going to, but someone was first. Hi, I'm Sharon Sales, and I'm here on behalf of my husband, Darren Sales as well. Sharon and Darren, I know. Anyway, he couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to speak on our behalf. We have the corner lot off a green field on Black Locust Way. So our backyard backs onto Powerline and Park Road, which is awesome. It's really, really loud. We can't open the windows most of the day. I can't work from home with the windows open ever. I can't have a conversation. We have company come over and they're like, wow, this is incredibly loud. How can you stand it? And it's really embarrassing because I have a beautiful backyard oasis. I'm on a 1/4 acre lot and it's beautiful, but I can't enjoy my own backyard. And other than complaining, I was wondering if a roundabout had been considered. I know that there's been discussion in having Powerline Road become a 4-lane roadway. And I thought there's roundabouts in so many cities. And I know that my husband does a lot of extensive travel. And he also, when he stays in different locations, sees the benefits of the reduction in speeding, in noise, in having a roundabout in an area such as the backyard where we are. And also I'd be open into having a berm of some sorts or some kind of sound barrier in our backyard. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I've done my part. I've planted 28 trees in my backyard in the last 3 years. It's no joke. It's cost me a fortune and I don't want to work a side job. So, so I really feel like frustrated that, I know the police can't be everywhere. And I know I would like to thank the Brantford Police for all the work that they do and the city staff for taking their time to be here and both councillors, thank you. I just feel that it would be really nice to feel like there's going to be some resolution it's probably 3 or 4 years ago, we're neighbors. 3 or 4 years ago, they took down a considerable amount of trees. So when I first purchased the house 9 years ago, it was like a beautiful forest behind our house. And then they came down 2 years later because they said they were affecting sight lines. So all these street lights that I couldn't see before are now glaring through my windows and I have to put up blinds and curtains because now oh, it's time to walk. It's time to go now because I can see all of that in my living room. So I don't know if any of those things have been considered and if Powerline is going to become a 4-lane roadway in the future.
That intersection is one that Councillor McCreary and I asked if it could be considered for a turning circle. One of the issues is some of the power lines, the towers are too close to some of the intersections. That was a concern for some of them, but I think that's one that the towers are far enough away. It should be possible.
I can't speak specifically about that intersection. I know, as Councillor Martin mentioned, council did direct us to look at roundabouts when we're developing to the north. The intersection, not your end, but the other end of Powerline, the intersection of Paris Road and Powerline is an intersection that needs to be rebuilt, and we're considering a roundabout there. There's lots of room for it. So we are definitely considering roundabouts in certain areas of the city when intersections are past their service life and need to be rebuilt.
And I find the motorcycles are considerably bad as well. So I almost wonder if there was a blitz for police as well to have their presence, because I know a lot of people have spoken to drag racing and it's a huge problem. And it wakes me up sometimes at 1, 2, 3 in the morning because they're just so loud.
Yeah, and a traffic circle there would certainly help, because you can't, with a green light, you can go speeding through, no problem. But with a roundabout, everybody has to slow down for it. And it keeps traffic moving better. And it also reduces speed just through that intersection. So it helps that way. Another thing that we're doing is we've asked the police to do a blitz on noisy mufflers. And a lot of these people that do the racing, they either have no mufflers or they've put in a modified muffler that's very loud. So we're hoping to address that issue with this blitz on noisy mufflers as well. Chief, I keep forgetting that you're online. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just a general comment that, again, thank you for the feedback. In the other community meetings, I've made the same statement that unless we know where, it's very hard to do directed enforcement. This allows me, I can send a message out before I leave tonight to the uniform patrol of the hot spots that you're identifying. And so clearly power line, and then to your point, Councillor Martin, about the noisy mufflers, that is a blitz that we can do. It's a challenge for us to get the convictions in court. I'll be very open and honest with that. Ontario, in my opinion, is a bit behind the times. Other provinces have a device called a decimeter. You tell the person to rev their car up to a certain RPM. We take a reading, and if it's over that reading, there's your evidence. In Ontario, it's a lot more subjective, but we will be doing a blitz, and hopefully that's a bit of a deterrent.
And hopefully they can concentrate on the power line and Dunstan when they do that blitz as well.
So we did have someone online. Is Elizabeth still got her hand raised? Okay, Elizabeth, you can go ahead now.
Thank you. Sorry to ask another question. So, you know, homes are changing, and by that I mean, in a home now, I live on Colonial Crescent, which has less homes generally relative to, let's say, Ashgrove, but I'm seeing that there's more cars per house, because now you'll have 30-year-old adult children who live at home, who have a vehicle, mom and dad has a vehicle, and potentially grandparents who are also living in the same household. So the issue on Ashgrove that strikes me, because I do that every day, is the fact that there are so many parked cars that the kids aren't being seen. Plus, we have the city bus, which goes on Ashgrove, which is also very important. So is the city, and even on Colonial Crescent, I'm seeing it even on my own crescent, where there's a lot more of my neighbors have cars parked on the street because they have adult kids, right? So is there a possibility to think about permits? I don't know if that's the answer, but it strikes me that we do have to deal with the number of cars that we have. So that's my first question. And the second was just simply, now that unfortunately, you know, my family has had this very tragic experience, is there an opportunity to include youth in whatever campaign that the city decides to proceed with? I can't speak for my daughter Emma right in this particular moment because she's out working tonight, but I'm going to guess that if you were to ask her to participate in a public campaign to change views, she would be more than happy to inspire others to slow down and to take that extra time. So anyways, permits is something that I would like to understand if that's a possibility on Ashgrove as well, or even on Colonial for that matter. It doesn't matter to me where they are, but that's, you know, is that a possibility? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Staff will address that when we have the follow-up meeting. On-street parking is a double-edged sword. When there's cars parked on the street, cars tend to have to slow down to go around them, and it does calm traffic a little bit, but it also is a visibility hazard, because if children comes out from behind a parked car, they're not seen until the last minute. So there's pros and cons with parked cars.
Good evening. My name is Deborah. I live at 27 Cedarland. I'm on the corner of Cedarland and Woods End, and I always felt I wouldn't live on a connector street, but I really feel I live in a bit of a beehive. There may be other people that want to address parking on Woods End this evening. I might not be the person that needs to do that, but I just wanted to make sure that that didn't not happen. What I am finding is there are so many people that have so many cars. If we all had just the number of cars that we can actually park in our driveway, we would be fine, but that does not seem to be the situation. In our particular situation, they have, we are on the corner, so they have these signs so that it's not possible for us to park. If a guest was to come, no one can park in front of our house. Then we have the whole side, Woods End. There's been lots of discussion back and forth about whether it needs to be both side parking, whether it needs to be one side parking. If it becomes one side parking, there will never, ever be an opportunity for anybody coming to see me to park anywhere near my house, because it will be either no parking beside my house, or it'll be everybody from the end. There's a whole lot of units. It's been really poorly planned in that many of these lovely homes cannot have a car parked in front of their home. There's a sign, no parking. So it just pushes it up to the point that it's like a zoo. And then we have before and after school, we have Cedarland. I used to think that kids walked home from schools, but I feel like they're all being picked up. I just cannot believe the backlog of cars waiting to pick up their children. I know some of them are from the neighborhood, so I don't know, give your heads a shake. But it goes right from the school right down, and it doesn't seem to matter what time of the month it is. Everybody just, that takes priority, getting their children. And it's dangerous. I take my life in my hands every time I back out of my driveway.
Thank you for your comments. On-street parking is a real problem. Woods End is a particular problem because the number of driveways on the turnaround at the end, there's no on-street parking there because the driveways are so close. So they all have to go further down the street, and it causes problem down. Firsthand, yeah. And the other problem is some people will have a driveway that'll hold 4 cars, but they only park 2 cars in the driveway and put the other 2 on the street, so they don't have to jockey vehicles if somebody who's further in the driveway wants to go somewhere. And that's particularly a problem in the winter when we get into snow clearing. But, the question was, what about the person who has 5 cars and only 2 drivers in the house? Hopefully,
the collector.
They've got some of the cars are collector cars, and they should be finding somewhere else to store them that hopefully would be a little more secure. Unfortunately, they don't all do that, so that causes a problem. Yeah, and demographics keep changing, and as was indicated, you got multiple generations living in a house with multiple cars because everybody needs to have a car to get around. Any more questions or comments? Any more
we
online?
do have one more
One more
online.
online?
Christine, are you back on?
No, sorry, I didn't have a question.
Okay.
No, I don't have a comment or a question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Rob, do you have any idea when the follow-up meeting will be for this? Next year? Early next year? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. You've raised a lot of serious concerns, and the police have heard where the hot spots are and the times, which is very important. It's very helpful for them. Like there's a saying, you go fishing, you fish where the fish are. This gives the police a chance to catch the speeders where the speeders are and at the right times. And the chief has commented several times at the Police Services Board that having that information is very valuable to the police service so that they can target hotspots at the right time. So thank you to everyone who joined us online, all the various staff that tuned in online, as well as all the staff that did a wonderful job here today. And thank you all very much for coming out. And I hope to see you sometime in the new year when we do a follow-up meeting.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor. If I could just ask you for a couple more minutes of your time, just to help staff with identifying the streets of the folks that came out here tonight. If you wouldn't mind just giving us your name and your address, we would really appreciate that before you go. And I think Rob has some handouts as well. So just visit the table before you leave. Thank you very much for being here, for your time and your input. Thank you.
And some of my business cards are on the table in front of the one computer there if you want to pick one of those up as well. Thank you very much.